WCBI News at 10 starts now.
Thanks for joining us at 10. President Trump is threatening to deploy U.S. troops to American cities after days of nationwide protests and riots. Those demonstrations were sparked by the police-involved death of George Floyd in Minneapolis last week. Natalie Brand is in Washington with more.
In a Rose Garden address, the president called on state governors to crack down on nationwide demonstrations after some have turned violent.
I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
Afterwards, President Trump visited the nearby historic St. John's Church. Presidents dating back to James Madison have attended services there. Chaos ensued outside the White House gates moments before the statement, with tear gas fired at crowds gathered there as police tried to move demonstrators from Lafayette Square as the 7 p.m. curfew in D.C. approached. Attorney General William Barr observed the protesters earlier behind a formation of military, police, and uniformed Secret Service. The president has blamed far-left groups like Antifa for the uptick in rioting, despite reports from local officials that far-right groups are also said to be involved.
I want the organizers of this terror to be on notice that you will face severe criminal penalties and lengthy sentences.
Protesters took a knee near the U.S. Capitol. Local Metropolitan Police officers did the same in front of Washington's Trump International Hotel.
That was Natalie Brand reporting. Attorney General William Barr has requested riot teams from the Bureau of Prisons to be deployed to Miami, Florida, and Washington, D.C. An autopsy commissioned by George Floyd's family found that Floyd died at the scene in Minneapolis. The report says the weight on his back, handcuffs, and positioning were contributing factors in the homicide. CBS's Jeff Pegues is in Minneapolis, where one of Floyd's family members made an emotional visit today.
Terrence Floyd knelt at the memorial, and so did the crowd around him. He then pleaded for the violence that has destroyed city blocks in Minneapolis to stop.
I know he would not want y'all to be doing this.
His brother George Floyd died a week ago today after his arrest was captured on cell phone camera.
I cannot breathe.
Today, the family's legal team announced the results of their own autopsy concluded that Derek Chauvin's knee to Floyd's neck was the cause of death, along with the weight of the other two officers on his back, which they say prevented the flow of blood to his brain and air to his lungs. Benjamin Crump is the family attorney.
That ambulance was essentially a hearse for George Floyd because, based on all apparent evidence, George was dead on that scene.
Late today, the county medical examiner released its final report, concluding that Floyd died from a heart attack while being restrained and said he had fentanyl and meth in his system. But still, the medical examiner called his death a homicide.
No justice, no peace.
Demonstrators continue to demand the 3 other fired officers be arrested. Most of the protests have been peaceful. This one on Sunday started out that way until a tanker truck sped up toward the crowds.
He was trying to scare us into stop protesting.
Ivory Jones was in the group that jumped on the driver. But did you guys think that this was some sort of intentional act?
Oh yes, this is very intentional.
Investigators said the driver did not intend to plow into the crowd. George Floyd will be remembered in a memorial service later this week and then a funeral service in Houston next week. Jeff Pegues, CBS News, Minneapolis.
Here in Mississippi, State Representative Sheck Taylor is advising a group of leaders in Starkville as they organize a demonstration. Taylor says he met with the group over 2 days to share tools to have their voices heard in peaceful ways.
Nonviolent protests are actually much more effective. It keeps the messaging on point. It makes sure that outside detractors doesn't control the narrative. And it also is a way that we can actually form an agenda. If you want your voices heard, make sure that you're talking to the right leadership and make sure that these energies are being channeled in a way that's productive. Throwing a rock, having a person have to pay for that long after you're gone, using those emotions just for 1 second is not enough. We have to understand that these measures of progress have to be sustained over long periods of time to actually create real change.
Taylor hopes this is an effort that young people will join to help create what he calls real sustainable change. Tupelo leaders are continuing to keep an open dialogue on race relations between the police and the community. Arlie Martin has more.
Tupelo Mayor Jason Shelton called for a joint meeting of the city's Police Advisory Board and the Community Outreach Task Force for Monday morning after protests over the death of George Floyd turned violent in larger cities over the weekend.
You need to come forward and say what happened is wrong.
Pastor Chris Traylor is president of the Lee County chapter of the NAACP. He wants elected leaders and others in key positions to publicly denounce the death of George Floyd, saying it would go a long way to calm the outrage seen across the country.
Once a suspect is under control, any application of force is to be halted.
Late last week, Tupelo Police Chief Barty Gary sent a letter to the mayor and to council members condemning the behavior of the Minneapolis officers in the death of Mr. Floyd. He says tactics used by those officers are not taught by Tupelo police at the North Mississippi Law Enforcement Training Center.
We hold ourselves to a higher standard, so we're going to make sure that our officers do not even practice anything near what we saw on video. It is appalling to all of our officers, to see another officer conduct themselves that way.
Officers also undergo ongoing training in race relations, de-escalation of a situation, and other exercises. Mayor Shelton believes it's important for everyone to have their voices heard and to trust city leaders and officers on the street.
Tupelo is the first city in the state to have a police advisory board. We're one of the first cities in the state to have body cams for all of the officers.
Dr. Richard Price is pastor of North Green Street Church of Christ and chairman of the Mayor's Community Outreach Task Force. He says these critical times will impact future generations.
I think we need to ask ourselves, what are we expecting out of the next generations, and what do we expect the fabric of our city and our country and our world to look like? I'm hoping that it'll be the same type of continuance of dealing with hard issues, because they're there and we can't ignore them, but also a willingness to see each other and to begin to get to know each other in different ways.
This is the first joint meeting of the two groups, but the Police Advisory Board and the Mayor's Community Outreach Task Force meet on their own every month. In Tupelo, Allie Martin, WCBI News.
We had some great weather over the last 3 days here, Saturday, Sunday, and today. Low humidity, quiet conditions, currently quiet. Not bad, 67 in Louisville, Mississippi right now. Temperatures in the upper 60s to around 70, cooling down into the mid 60s in some other locales right now. The wind is light, and we just have some passing high clouds across the region. So the rest of tonight, pretty quiet. Mid 60s, about 64 degrees plus or minus here. Not bad, but warmer than where we were this morning. We started out in the mid 50s. 60s for lows tonight. We are looking at upper 80s to around 90 on your Tuesday. Partly cloudy, just a 20% chance for a spotty shower or storm. I'm back with your full forecast coming up.
The manslaughter charge against former Columbus police officer Kenyon Boykin has been dismissed with prejudice. Judge Lee Coleman signed that order today. Here's a look outside the municipal complex from this morning where protesters gathered hoping to see that decision overturned. People were signing petitions in hopes of a different outcome. Now, all of this was before a judge signed the order today. Now protesters hope city and state leaders will hear their voice and think about the impact this case is having in the community.
That's disrespectful for after what happened up there in Minnesota, for you to come back and do that right after that with no explanation. Just two paragraphs. Come on.
My reaction is not fear. I'm not intimidated. I'm not afraid to talk to Attorney General Lynn Fitch face-to-face by herself behind closed doors if she needs to be. I'll work with her.
It can go on for so long until somebody actually agrees to get up and speak about it. And, we're just tired of it, man, and we need justice.
Legal experts say that this rarely happens in criminal cases. New tonight, a Parchman inmate serving time for a conviction out of Northeast Mississippi has died. Harold Ramsey, 62, died at Delta Regional Medical Center in Greenville today. He had been transferred there from a prison hospital. The Mississippi Department of Corrections said Ramsey had been dealing with a chronic illness. Ramsey had been hospitalized frequently in the last several months. An autopsy will be done to determine his cause of death. Ramsey was serving 12 years for 3 convictions, aggravated assault and non-residential burglary, both in Alcorn County, and 2 counts of grand larceny in Prentiss County. State officials are still sending a warning out about the threat of the coronavirus. Governor Tate Reeves telling folks that they can't act like it's June 1st, 2019. Courtney Ann Jackson has the very latest from today's briefing.
On this same day, the state gives the green light to the remaining closed businesses to open. Governor Tate Reeves is giving this warning.
I don't want to look in that camera and say, I'm sorry, but because we weren't responsible, we got to reevaluate our ability to open things up.
Similar sentiments from State Health Officer Dr. Thomas Dobbs.
If people will behave now, we can do stuff later, right? If we behave in such a way that the disease fizzles out in your community, then the stuff that you want to do, you can do.
The frustration seems to be growing for both the governor and Dr. Dobbs.
Concerned that so many in our state, many of them frustrated from having been unable to get out and about, are not adhering to the guidelines that are in place.
We're seeing in some areas a shift to younger people getting it. In Jones County, the biggest groups are going to be between 20 and 40. So that's people are out and about doing stuff.
Governor Reeves notes that the community mask distributions have a purpose.
Because we believe it's the right thing to do. We want to have every single person in our communities throughout the state, some of whom may not have the means, may not have the opportunity to purchase masks, so that they could get those masks, because it is important. We're encouraging people to do it. We're asking you to act responsibly. We believe that the vast majority of Mississippians are, in fact, acting responsibly.
Courtney Ann Jackson, WCBI News.
As a reminder, masks are not mandated statewide, but the hotspot counties do have added restrictions, including wearing masks in public spaces. All right, we're going to send things back over to Chief Meteorologist Keith Gibson. Keith, it's hard to believe we're already June 1st.
The year getting closer to being half over.
Thankfully, I think we're all ready to see 2020 come to a close.
This has been the longest 5 months, almost 6 months that we've had in our lifetime, I think. Tomorrow, though, our Tuesday, the 2nd day of June, upper 80s, low 90s. Scattered storms possible in the region. Most spots stay dry around here. Your full forecast is next.
Your WCBI First Alert AccuWeather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Keith Gibson.
We are now into a summer month, the month of June, and things will get more active in the tropics. Let's talk about the Gulf of Mexico right now and parts of the Atlantic. This is where we would suspect storms to initiate this time of year, specifically the Gulf of Mexico. Let's zoom on in here. We have Tropical Depression number 3 spinning on up here just west of the Yucatan Peninsula, and this thing is going to be hanging out down here for the next couple of days, really through a good chunk of the work week, and then by the weekend likely lifting back to the north. Forecast models suggesting it will lift to the north at some point. Now, where it will go, how strong it will be, we just do not know at this point, but it's down there. We'll keep watching it. It's going to be an item of interest all week long. Now, about noon today, I was out in my driveway. I snapped this picture, and notice how short my shadow was. In the mornings and evenings, your shadow is really long, but when your shadow is short, just keep in mind the sun is very powerful. Burns happen quickly. The UV index tomorrow, 10, and that's in the high to extreme category, so use extra protection, sunscreen, hats. We will keep harping on this all summer long. It is just going to be warm and sticky and pretty intense with that sun when it is out. Now, here's our first look forecast for tomorrow. Kit, the kitty, ready for a warm day tomorrow. We're looking at mid-80s by noon. Chance for some spotty storms, stray storms possible in the afternoon. Not everyone will see it, but the moisture content in the atmosphere is back, and that means there will be an opportunity for some scattered showers and storms for the rest of the work week. Notice how our comfort index is in that humid category, or muggy category really indefinitely now. So we enjoy some great weather Saturday, Sunday, Monday, dry conditions, sunny skies, a bit of a breeze. Now tomorrow we wake up to temperatures primarily in the 60s. We'll warm back up into the upper 80s as we get into the afternoon hours. And notice how there are a few green dots there on that map. And that just means there could be a shower or storm at some point, but not everyone will see it. I think we'll have a better opportunity as we get into your Wednesday and Thursday. Let's roll on into your Wednesday afternoon. A few more scattered showers and storms across the region. That's just going to be the forecast here for the rest of the work week. So for the near term, upper 80s to lower 90s, a better chance for some storms here starting Wednesday. But by the weekend, we'll be waiting and watching what happens down there in the Gulf of Mexico. Many days to watch it. More of the show after the break.
You're watching WCBI News at 10 with Scott Martin.
Welcome back, everyone. Cardiovascular disease, including heart disease and stroke, is the leading cause of death in Mississippi, accounting for over a third of all deaths in our state. Mississippi's CVD mortality rate remains the highest in the nation. We learn more in tonight's Health Talk with Baptist.
Hi, I'm Belinda Sanderson, Director of Quality at Baptist Memorial Hospital Golden Triangle. Tonight, I would like to talk to you about some warning signs of stroke. A stroke is a brain attack. It can happen to anyone at any time. It occurs when blood flow to an area of the brain is cut off. A person's body language tells you a lot of things, but would you know if someone was having a stroke right in front of you? The ability to recognize the signs of stroke gives you the power to act quickly. A stroke puts a person's life in danger. Every extra minute the person waits to get help increases the risk of permanent brain damage. After a stroke, an estimated 2 million brain cells die each minute if treatment is not started on time. According to the American Stroke Association, an easy way to tell if someone is having a stroke is to remember the letters F-A-S-T. F stands for face. Face drooping. Does one side of the face droop or is it numb? Ask the person to smile. Is the person's smile even or lopsided? A stands for arm weakness. Is one arm weak or numb? Ask the person to raise both arms. Does one arm drift downward? S stands for speech. Is speech slurred? Is the person unable to speak or hard to understand? Ask the person to repeat a simple sentence. T stands for time to call 911. If the person shows any of these symptoms, even if the symptoms go away, call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Join us next time for Health Talk with Baptist when we will discuss additional symptoms of a stroke.
Mail your topic suggestions to healthtalk@wcbi.com. Health Talk has been brought to you by Baptist Memorial Hospital Golden Triangle.
One of the area's top softball coach has found a new program to lead. The latest on high school coaching news next in sports.
Here's sports with Tom Ebel.
Legendary high school softball coach Lee Berryhill has found a new home. The former East Webster head coach will lead a program 25 miles east of Maben. Starkville Academy has hired Berryhill to become the head softball coach, and he'll also be an assistant coach for the baseball program. Berryhill spent the past 8 seasons with East Webster, winning 5 state championships combined in slow pitch and fast pitch. Berryhill also won 2 state championships in 17 years as the head baseball coach of Eupora prior to his time at East Webster. It's been a wild 2 weeks for former Mississippi State Bulldog Jarian Jones. Jones entered the transfer portal on May 19th. Less than a week later, Jones committed to play for Ole Miss. 2 weeks after that commitment, Jones has announced he will enroll at Florida State University, joining another former Bulldog, Fabian Levitt. Jones had 12 tackles and 2 pass breakups as a true freshman at Mississippi State this past season. A wonderful sight for sports, hopefully returning back to normal in the fall. Ole Miss athletes returning to campus on Monday. The NCAA allowed voluntary athletic activities for Division I sports to begin June 1st. The SEC has stated all sports can return to practice fields and weight rooms voluntarily on June 8th. Ole Miss men's basketball in Dayton has agreed to a home-and-home series for the next 2 seasons. The Rebels will be on the road in 2020, traveling to Dayton on December 19th. Dayton finished this past season ranked 3rd in the country. The Flyers will also face Mississippi State in Atlanta this upcoming season. New Albany head soccer coach Carl Vogel joins Blue Mountain to lead its inaugural men's soccer team. Vogel spent 7 seasons with the Bulldogs, posting a record of 137, 81, and 12. During that time, Vogel earned the MAC Boys North All-Star coaching honor and finished the 2019 season leading New Albany to a North half final appearance. Blue Mountain begins men's soccer competition in 2021. That's it for sports. We'll be back right after the break.
That humidity, it's coming on back. You may have already felt it this evening as we go throughout the next few days, upper 80s to low 90s. A pretty good chance for some scattered storms, maybe tomorrow, but more so Wednesday, Thursday, perhaps lingering into the weekend. We'll warm things up into the weekend, of course, as we mentioned, Scott, watching the golf by Sunday and Monday.
We knew that humidity wasn't going to stay away forever.
Not this time of year.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.